Deciding which incoming rookies are the best options to draft is always one of the toughest parts about fantasy football. So today, we're going to rank the top 12 rookies and tell you where you should be drafting them in 2024 fantasy football. Starting out with Marvin Harrison Jr., he is one of the most expensive rookies of all time in fantasy football. I believe, depending on what platform you're playing on, he is the most expensive rookie of all time. Now, at FTR, we have him ranked 15th overall. So he's an early second round pick. And while this may seem extremely aggressive, he is a truly generational prospect, in my opinion. And he has a fantastic situation. He is very pro ready. He's going into the Cardinals, which you typically don't see players pick that high, land in good situations. But with Kyler Murray being injured for a majority of last year, that really hurt them. But now the team is completely different. They have an emerging Trey McBride who should help, draw some of the coverage off of Harrison. And Harrison just truly is a guy that's ready to be an alpha, dominant wide receiver one the minute he steps in the league. He was absolutely dominant at Ohio State. He had a 89.9 PFF grade, 26.7 team target share, and 20% touchdown rate. So the man's an absolute monster. I think it really just comes down to how much risk are you willing to take. But when comparing him to the other rookies, I really don't think there's a question that Marv has to be the top guy. Now at 2, we're going to have Malik Neighbors, another rookie. And Neighbors is also a guy that I'm higher than consensus on. I think that if Marv wasn't in this class, we'd be talking about Neighbors more because I've seen analysts say that Neighbors should be over Marvin Harrison because Neighbors honestly has a better yak ability than Marv, which is definitely important for fantasy football because that's going to generate a ton of big plays. But the issue with Neighbor is even though he went 6 overall, he had fantastic draft capital. He wasn't very fortunate like Marvin Harrison and landed with the Giants. So Daniel Jones is a not very good quarterback. I'm higher than Jones than the consensus as well, which is why I have Malik Neighbors higher than consensus. I really don't think he's as bad as people say. Yes, he's not a great NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be, but I don't think they're going to be the bottom 5 offense that many people are projecting him to be or the offense to be. And that's where people are saying, oh, if you have a bottom 5 offense, Neighbors stands no chance. Yes, I think that is a fair point. And while one, I believe Neighbors has the talent to overcome the situation. I think he is truly not a generational talent, but he is one of the best prospects we've seen in the last 10 years. But I also think Daniel Jones will be better than expected. Now, Neighbors, he's also an elite guy. He had a 26% team target share playing next to fellow first-round pick Brian Thomas Jr. He broke out as a sophomore. He really just checks every single box you're looking for. He had a monster season, 89 catches, 14 receiving touchdowns, 17.6 yards per reception. So 9 100-yard games. Absolute monster. I don't really think there's any question about who you should be taking with, if you're drafting a rookie, I think Neighbors has to be the second guy off the board. Now, here's where things are going to shake up a little bit. We are going to have a running back here, and that is going to be Jonathan Brooks. Now, I understand that. Let me pull up where I have Brooks ranked. He, I believe, is highly. So right now I have him at 62, and that was before. I need to go in and update these fully. That was before they kind of announced that he was going to miss some time at the beginning of the year. But I really already knew that going in, which is why I'm still kind of keeping this relative ranking. I think with Brooks, the fact is that he is a much better prospect than a lot of people want to give him credit for. He was playing behind Bijan Robinson, but had a monster year at Texas, absolutely tore it up. Now he's going to the Panthers, which people look at the Panthers and say, this is a gross situation. Yes, it could be, but Dave Canales is coming in. I absolutely trust him to fix the Panthers offense. He did so with the Bucs. He's been a quarterback whisperer for Geno Smith as well. I think Bryce Young is more than talented enough. I think he's better than Geno Smith. I think he's better than Baker Mayfield. So I don't see why the Panthers offense with Xavier Legette, solid addition. They got Deontay Johnson in the offseason. I think they can be an average offense. And Brooks could truly have league-winning upside down the end of the year. I think he has the ability to be a back-end running back 1, if not a high-end running back 2. So That makes him our third ranked rookie. At 4, we're going to have Bowers, and Bowers is also a guy that I'm way higher than consensus on. I have him ranked 75th overall, so I have him above guys like JSN, Jordan Addison, Calvin Ridley, behind guys like James Conner, Zamir White. For context, I think I'm going to have to move him down a little bit just because he is kind of still in that low tight end 1 range. And on ESPN and these other home leagues, you're able to draft him around pick 100 or past that. So just from a value perspective, I'll probably move him down our FTR rankings. But still, people are forgetting that Bowers was, I really don't want to just throw around the word generational prospect, but he is the best tight end prospect, in my opinion, since Kyle Pitts. People forget he had 15 touchdowns at Georgia on an absolutely loaded roster. He's used as a runner. He had 5 rushing touchdowns during his time at Georgia as well. So he's super explosive. When we're looking at tight ends, we don't want a guy that is just going to block and kind of help out the NFL team. We want a guy that is going to be used as essentially a big slot, and they're going to be getting a ton of receiving reps. And Bowers fits that profile exactly. That's exactly what he's going to do with the Raiders. Now, the issue where we have Bowers is not only does he have risk because we haven't seen him do it in the NFL and he's a rookie, but he's going to be playing behind Devontae Adams, who's a target hog. The Raiders don't have good quarterback playing either Gardner Minshew, hopefully, or Aiden O'Connell. And rookie tight ends typically don't produce in year 1. It takes them quite some time to develop. Now, Sam Laporta and Kincaid were both, obviously Laporta was amazing. Kincaid was so solid, but that's not the norm. So there's definitely some downside in taking a guy like Bowers, but I truly do believe that he is going to be amazing in year 1, and I think that he has upside to win your league if he has a Sam Laporta type season. Now, at 5, we're going to have Jaden Daniels. I have Daniels ranked 80th overall, and I have him right behind a quarterback like Dak Prescott, and I have him above a guy like Jordan Love, Caleb Williams. So I'm really high on Jaden Daniels this year. He's been amazing his whole collegiate career running the ball. He just wasn't able to really put things together passing the ball until he teamed up with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Now, the thing is, do I really believe that Jaden Daniels is going to be a fantastic NFL quarterback? No, probably not. But when we're looking at a guy that ran the ball for over 700 yards his last 3 seasons, and that's including sacks. So that's an extremely impressive rate. That's the guy that I want to be drafting in, your standard fantasy football settings where rushing quarterbacks are king when it's 4-point passing touchdowns. Daniels can be a bad NFL quarterback, but he has the upside to be an absolute league winner if he's good. Now, say if he's a good NFL quarterback. Now, say Daniels is struggling his rookie year. He's not really actually helping the Commanders too much, but he is doing whatever he can on the ground, and he's picking up, 50 to 100 rushing yards per game and a good amount of rushing touchdowns. He is easily going to hit his ADP or his 80th overall draft rank, and he still has the upside to finish way higher than that, even if he's not really great from an NFL perspective. So these rushing quarterbacks, Daniels has a ton of upside, and I really think that he is a smash pick this year. He is going to crush at his draft position. Now, Rome Odunze is our 6th-ranked rookie. I have him 82nd overall. Obviously, I would have him much higher than this. I'm a big Rome Odunze fan, even before he went to my team, the Bears. So, maybe you could say a little bias here, but at Washington, he just looked phenomenal playing that alpha X receiver role. He caught an absurd amount of contested catches. I'll kind of pull up his profile, and he was playing next to 2 other, pretty good prospects in Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan. We'll talk about Polk later on, but he hit a ton of impressive marks. He would have declared earlier, but he only played 4 games in 2020 because of COVID, and he's still 21 years old, so he broke out at a pretty young age. He had a 19.6 team target share playing next to those top prospects, like we mentioned, and he was just absolutely phenomenal in that Washington offense. Now, there were a lot of analysts as well that were saying that he is a better NFL prospect than Malik Neighbors. So take that with however you want. But this with Rome is you're playing next to Keenan Allen, who I'm not expecting a big fall off this year. I did a film breakdown of him on the Fantasy Trading Room channel if you want to check that out. And they have DJ Moore, who was phenomenal last year despite playing with Justin Fields. So Rome Odunze is great, but we could be looking at a similar situation than JSN and what he did last year. Now, a lot of that was partially because of his injury, but keep in mind the Bears' new offensive coordinator is Shane Waldron, who was the offensive coordinator for Jack Smith and Jigba, which is scaring me off. So even though I'm really high on Rome Odunze as a prospect, and I still have him ranked fairly high, I do just have to warn you to, be a little conservative with your rankings. But at 7, we're going to go over to Ladd McConkey. I have him one spot behind Rome Odunze. I have him 83rd overall. Now, he wasn't my favorite prospect coming out of college, but he obviously lands in a phenomenal situation with the Chargers. Now, that said, they're not really going to pass the ball a ton. They have a Greg Roman offense, even though they have Justin Herbert, who is one of the best passing quarterbacks in the NFL. I still believe from a talent perspective, from a pure NFL perspective, he's probably a top 5 NFL quarterback. He's playing next to Josh Palmer, maybe not even Quentin Johnston, DJ Chark. So he should absolutely eat, especially from the slot. Slot is phenomenal. If you're playing in a PPR league, I think that's going to be a huge thing. You really want to target those guys. And McConkey really doesn't have too much statistical analysis to back it up, but his route running, if you watch the film on him, which I do over at the Fantasy Trading Room channel, he is phenomenal. His route running is truly next level. Teams clearly are super high on him. He went early in the second round to the Chargers, so he's going to get a chance to run a lot of routes. He checks the eye test. Now, we just need to see that, he can actually produce after missing time from injuries. But I'm taking a guy there that has all the opportunity in the world and is a pretty good prospect, at least from a film perspective. At 8, we're going to have Brian Thomas Jr. I have him ranked 86 overall, and I'm really high in BTJ because Calvin Ridley left the Jaguars, and he left behind a ton of targets. Let me pull up an exact number for you guys, but Calvin Ridley was drawing around, let me get a exact number, 136 targets last year. I think he's easily going to go over 100 targets this year. I really do think that he plays very similar to Calvin Ridley, and he seems like the receiver that people are kind of just bored of and forgetting about. People want to, Ladd McConkey, we already talked about, Keon Coleman, who we're going to talk about later. Those seem like the more exciting options because, the Chargers, you have Ladd's going to be the receiver 1, the Bills, you have Josh Allen on the ball, and Brian Thomas Jr., people are kind of getting sick of Trevor Lawrence, and I'm not a big Trevor Lawrence fan, but I have to admit that he was a phenomenal prospect coming out of college. He's definitely shown flashes, and he's shown signs of improvement. And the Jaguars looked very good before Lawrence kind of got banged up and had a tough back end of the year. But Brian Thomas Jr. can be that wide receiver 1. I truly do believe that he has an insane ceiling and can basically be Calvin Ridley, who had 13.5 points per game last year, and possibly even better if, Ridley had 8 touchdowns, but Brian Thomas Jr. is also, he has the same ability to be a red zone target, especially when all you really have is Evan Ingram, who's more of a yak guy, Christian Kirk, more of a slot guy, and Brian Thomas Jr. could be that, red zone threat when you have Trevor Lawrence putting up a ton of passing touchdowns this year. I have to say that, yes, there is a ton of risk because he's playing next to Christian Kirk. He's playing next to Evan Ingram. So as a rookie, it's not necessarily a guarantee that he's going to start over those guys. But I think that people are overlooking the fact that he was a first-round pick. So the draft capital and talent profile should shine through with BTJ. Now we're going to move on to number 9, and that's going to be Keon Coleman. Drafting him 90th overall, we kind of allude to the fact that he is very exciting playing with Josh Allen and in the Bills offense. Keon Coleman is a guy that after seeing some film on, I think people should be really excited about. Again, I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of him coming out of college, but the fact that he dropped so much due to his poor 40 time, and then it was like a 4.61, I believe, off the top of my head, and then came right back out with fantastic GPS speed in the gauntlet drill, kind of just shows how silly some of these, overreaction to combine numbers are. I think they're definitely important, But if we're getting real numbers of his playing speed, why does it matter how fast he can run from a sprinter position? That's kind of just dumb to me. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He gets the ball in space and can make moves. So I think knowing how explosive he is, that's how he was used at FSU. They try to give him the ball space. He was used a lot near the line of scrimmage, and he also has the ability to, win contested catches and go up and get the ball. So really a ton of upside in that profile. He can be the full package. I think that he lacked a lot of consistency in his game, which is why he wasn't a first-round pick, which is why I do have him down here at 9. But at the same time, I think he will be the Bills' wide receiver 1 fairly quickly into the year. Obviously, though, he's still going to be behind Dalton Kincaid. Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel are both good receivers, so I don't expect the Bills to necessarily force him into anything, but he definitely has the upside. And again, if I'm taking him around pick 90, I think that's a very good pick due to all the upside he has. Now, at 10, we are going to have my guy, Caleb Williams. As a Bears fan, I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am. We saw him play against the Bills. He looked great, so, I don't think I'm being biased. I've been a huge fan of Williams even before the Bears got him, because you have to remember that when the Bears had the first overall pick traded the Panthers, we had assumed there was no shot we were ever going to be in that situation again. And I was like, that kind of sucks, because I like Bryce Young. C.J. Stroud is, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud's pretty good. Obviously, I probably should have been praying we just get C.J. Stroud, but I was kind of bummed out because Caleb Williams is coming out the next year, and I truly believed he was one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen since Trevor Lawrence, to be honest. But he has the ability to set the fantasy football world on fire with his upside, because he's playing next to, like I said, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, a pass-catching back in DeAndre Swift, and an overall much improved offense. Now, with all those weapons, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a CJ Stroud type rookie year, but honestly, a little bit better. He's a better rusher than Stroud, which is kind of overlooked. He's not really going to put up Jaden Daniels type rushing stats, but he could definitely, punch in 4 or 5 touchdowns, get around 25 rushing yards per game, and add a little bit of a floor, be serviceable in the rushing game to where he could be a mid-end quarterback 1 if everything goes right. Of course, the risk is that he is a rookie quarterback, and typically those guys take time to develop. So it's a really big if with Caleb Williams, and I don't think he's necessarily going to be a bad player, but he may not move the needle unless really everything with that offense goes right, and it looks great on paper. The one thing is that we just haven't really actually seen it together. So our next guy is going to be Xavier Worthy. I have him at 101. I'm not the big Xavier Worthy fan, to be honest. He was very good at Texas, and he broke out as a freshman, going for 62 catches, 981 yards, and 12 touchdowns with a 30.1% team target share. The issue is he got worse every single year instead of better, which, it's hard to replicate those stats. I get it. He was playing next to, A.D. Mitchell after he transferred, and the quarterback, Quinn Ewers, was solid, but he wasn't necessarily great last year. I'm still not really buying those excuses. I don't like the fact that he's on a downward trajectory, and that's really just tough for me to get by. Now, Marquise Brown, though, is projected to miss about 4 to 6 weeks. Rashee Rice is probably going to get suspended, so I may have to move Worthy up. I just think that he is a very volatile because for your regular redraft leagues, you're going to have to be forced to either sit or start him every single week. And with the deep play threat he is, yeah, he could go off for 20 points with a massive Patrick Mahomes bomb. But at the same time, when you have Kelsey, especially near the end of the year, once you're going to have Kelsey, you're going to have Brown back in, Rice back in, who knows what you're going to get from him on a week-to-week basis. And I really would never feel comfortable starting him once all 4 of those receivers are in, unless he absolutely goes crazy and proves me wrong. But the last guy on our list is going to be Jalen Polk, the potential wide receiver 1 for the Patriots. And while I wasn't I was more of a Jalen McMillan fan in that Washington group, Polk got really good draft capital. 34th. He went 44th overall to the Patriots, and they don't really have anyone. They have Pop Douglas, who's pretty good, but he's a really small receiver. Javon Baker has been getting a lot of hype, but he's been running with the more 3-4s. And Polk is just a guy that I think that isn't super exciting, which is kind of why the fantasy and dynasty community has been sleeping on him, myself included. I think he's a very solid player overall. He has very good hands. He's a pretty good aggressive catcher. He's a pretty good route runner. He doesn't necessarily do anything that pops off the page to you, but he's a very good all around. And when you're getting a guy that could be the wide receiver 1 for the Patriots, that alone gives him upside to, draw high team target share. And while Jacoby Brissett isn't very good, I don't think he's going to be absolutely horrible. And you also have the possibility that Drake May comes in, and with his upside, he could be very good once he finally plays. And that would, obviously raise Jalen Polk's ceiling a ton, and he could possibly have a phenomenal year. But if you guys enjoyed the rankings, let me know down below. Let's debate. Let's talk. If you want my full set of rankings, you can now sign up for a completely free 30-day trial on the Fantasy Trading Room. That's just fftradingroom.com. Go to premium. You'll see your free trial there. I'll also link it down in the comments. But of course, as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the Face Off channel for more content from myself. We got a ton of other great creators on board. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.